Good day, everyone. We are the group 4 reporting to you about the cognitivism. Before we start about our main topic, which is cognitivism, I will tackle you about the objectives for learning. First is identify the purpose of cognitivism in a classroom. Second, learn the importance of cognitivism in education. And last, know what is cognitivism or cognitive learning theory. What is cognitivism? Cognitivism is a learning theory that focuses on how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. Cognitivism can be defined as the study in psychology that focuses on mental processes, including how people think, perceive, and learn to solve problems and direct their attention to one stimulus rather than another.
Okay, so the cognitive learning theory explains why the brain is the most incredible network of information processing and interpretation in the body as we learn things. The theory can be divided into two specific theories: the social cognitive theory, or the SCT, and the cognitive behavioral theory, or CBT. So let me explain further. Cognitive learning theory explains how internal and external factors influence an individual's mental processes to supplement learning. Nevertheless, delays and difficulties in learning are seen when cognitive processes are not working regularly. So, furthermore, to comprehend how thought processes affect learning, cognitive learning theory uses metacognition, or thinking about thinking. It frequently contrasts with behavioral learning theory, which focuses on the environment affects learning or is complemented by it. So here are some examples of cognitive learning theory strategies. First is um asking students to reflect on their experience, helping students find new solutions to problems, encouraging discussions about what is being taught by the teacher, helping students explore and understand how ideas are connected, and lastly, asking students to justify and explain their thinking. So next, it uses the mind as an information processor like a computer. Therefore, cognitivism looks beyond observable behavior, viewing learnings as internal mental processes. So, before that, let me discuss the SCT first. So, SCT, in accordance with the social cognitive theory, which is applied to psychology, education, and communication, a person's knowledge acquisition might be in part directly um, tied to how they see other people in the context of social interactions, experience, um, experiences, and outside media influences. So here are the examples, like putting others first, anticipating needs, forgiving others, not expecting reciprocity, and sacrificing time and money to help others. Um, the next one is the offering support and worrying about how your actions may affect others. So CBT naman, it is a theory that suggests our thoughts, emotions, and body sensations and behavior are all connected, and that what we think and do affects the way we feel. So here are the examples of the disorders that could benefit from cognitive behavioral theory. First is the anxiety, second is the depression, third is the panic attack, fourth is addiction, five, eating disorders or having your body obese or obesity. The sixth one is the anger, and the last one is the phobias. So in this view, learners are actively involved in the way they process information. Knowledge, memory, thinking, and problem solving are areas for development. Um, Cognitive theories emphasizes making knowledge meaningful and helping learners organize and relate new information to existing knowledge in memory. Um, Furthermore, instruction must be based on a student's existing or a mental structure or schema to be effective. Okay, the last one is the cognitivism, also known as cognitive learning theory, helps in developing better programs for learners because it uses research that focuses on the brain and mental processes for acquiring and using new information. Uh, the mind is like a computer when it comes to learning. Cognitive theory focuses on the process of learning and acquiring new information. Sabi nga kanina, for example of things studied in this field are attention span, memory, reasoning, and other functions and actions of the brain that are seen as a complex mental process. The concept of learning itself is also an example of cognition. Next. So, here are the quote by Brunner. Knowledge is an internal process rather than a product. Let me explain this quote. So individuals create information through internal learning processes. That it's important for people to understand that this is something they have some control over. Nevertheless, learning as a process refers to the internal development caused by acquiring new information and elaborating one's own understanding of using it. So, this is the view of emphasizing learners' active engagement in their own learning process and making sense of the content. Students are subjects of their own learning.
So, yes, the history of cognitivism. In the 1950s, cognitivist theory developed as a reaction to behaviorism and gained credence. And cognitivists objected to behaviorists because they felt that behaviorists thought learning was simply a reaction to a stimulus and ignored the idea that thinking plays an important role. Although many researchers contributed to the development of the learning theory, for example, Brunner, Vygotsky, Bloom, and Oswald, Piaget's views had a tremendous impact. Spurred by the work of Piaget, constructivism, knowledge is viewed as a symbolic mental constructs or schemata. And when a learner's schemata are changed, learning takes place. And lastly is that as neuroscientists continue to discover more about how the brain works, cognitive psychologists and educators are concerned with how to use that knowledge in the classroom.
The key principles and classroom implications. These are the sum of the central principles in cognitivism and their implications in the classrooms are: first, learning is a process of organizing information into conceptualized models. So what is conceptualized models? Conceptualized models are abstract. It is a psychological representations of how tasks, should be carried out. It consists of concepts used to help the students to know, understand, or simulate a subject. It's a concept or in order for the students to easier to understand. The next one is instruction should be organized, sequenced, and presented in a manner that is understandable and meaningful to the learner. To be clear and meaningful to the learner daw, dapat you know pod ang skills sa students nimo. You should identify and understand what your students know and don't know. In order to understand something, students should know the basics bago sila mag-jump sa difficult topic. For example is, nag-instruct ka na mag-solve sila ng long division and you don't know na dili pa di ay sila kabalo sa basic division or even subtraction. So kahit gaano ka-clear para sa teacher yung instruction na magawa or solve sila ng long division, dili gihapon ang masabtan or ma-understand sa students because they don't even know the basics. So it's important you as a teacher know what your students know and don't know para kabalo ka asa ka magsugod and unsa imong unahon ug buhaton para organize, sequence, and naa kay plan unsa sunod buhaton nimo para sa student makasabot and clear and meaningful para sa ilaha. The next one is retention and recall is important to build schemas in the brain. So what is schema? Schema or scheme is an abstract concept proposed by Jean Piaget. Schema are the units of understanding that can be hierarchically categorized. We all know that retention is something in one's memory, and we all know that recall is remember. And please take note that cognitivism emphasizes retention and recall through the use of quality teaching practices. The next one is memory is supported by organizing learning materials. Remembering or recalling knowledge is from our memory baya. So, dapat ang learning material should be organized so it has a logical flow that just makes sense. It allows students to clearly see how the main concepts are related. Para learning material should be organized para po dili mawala sa passing. Maugani na atay learning objectives para guided ta sa mga buhatonon. So, learning materials acts as a guide for both the teacher and the students. Learning material should be aligned with the learning objectives and assessments so that it will encourage student motivation, performance, or etc. So lastly is teachers must provide tools that help learners' brains process information. Dili na magawas ang mga teaching and learning strategies sa teacher. For example, kanang mga mnemonic device, visual aids, it help cue the student's memory. So please take note that cognitivism is often used in developing classroom lessons and helping students learn higher order thinking skills. So wala ta kabantay na ginagamit na din sa tong classroom or wala lang jud kabalo unsa na sila. Kana mga daily review quiz, it activates prior knowledge, reflection paper or essay paper. Gina-chunk na tong information with comprehensible and digestible parts kaya magamit matag first, secondly, and lastly or finally. And even graphic organizer, it helps structure and relate content. So after the teacher implements these principles of cognitivism, we can expect that the students are doing much better job in understanding, retaining, and recalling. So if your students can seem to understand the concept and if you want to teach your students in the future a difficult concepts, the learning theory that must be used or effective is obviously cognitivism. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so next is the overview of the theory. Of course, Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development originated first through his interest in animals and how they were equipped to cope with their environment and have the ability to survive. Next, Piaget became intrigued with the reasons children gave their wrong answers on the questions that required logical thinking. He then believed that these incorrect answers revealed important differences between the thinking of adults and children. Lastly is that Piaget believed that all the stages of development were the same for each child and each one has to be passed in sequence.
According to Vygotsky, 1978, much important learning by the child occurs through social interaction with a skillful tutor. Vygotsky believes that young children are curious and actively involved in their own learning and the discovery and development of new understandings. However, Vygotsky placed more emphasis on social contributions to the process of development, whereas Piaget emphasized self-initiated discovery.
The four developmental stages. First, the sensory motor stage, from birth to age 2. By this stage, the child discovering the differences between themselves and their environment, learn about the world by using their senses to interact with their surroundings. Second, pre-operational stage, from age 2 to 7. The children are thinking at a symbolic level but are not yet using cognitive operations. At this age, they will start talking and use symbols to represent their world. They are limited to experience from their point of view. Third, the concrete operational stage, from age 7 to 11. This period, they characterized by the development of organized and rational thinking. This is an important step in the cognitive development of children. The fourth is the formal operational stage, from age 11 to 16. This time, people develop the ability to think about abstract concepts and logically test hypotheses. And that's all. Thank you.
So these are the examples of cognitivism in the classroom by the teacher. The first one is teach students using representative pictures to accommodate their level of learning. So the use of images in the classroom has led to increased student interactivity and discussion. Teaching with images can also help develop the students in visual literacy skills, excuse me, which contributes to their overall critical thinking skills and lifelong learning. The next example is PowerPoints and movies can be shown relating to the subject matter. And using PowerPoint or video presentation may encourage students and improve their achievement. It may enhance learning by providing a better understanding and comprehension of the subjects, as well as by providing different methods, ways, and techniques within the same slide. And the next is teach students all types of learning going outside to do activities. So outdoor learning improves child development by heading outside and learning in nature. Kids improve their emotional, intellectual, and cognitive development. So outdoors learning also helps foster the development of creativity, problem solving, independence, and confidence. And the last examples are show how to do activities and have students follow. So because it increases their attention and focus on and motivates them to engage in higher level critical thinking. And that's all for our report. Thank you for listening and have a good day.